it is 10, we are going to go ahead and jump right in with our first webinar of 2024. We're so excited this morning to be having our guest speaker, Emily Bush, who is the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida. She'll be sharing more about the programs and events that the organization facilitates, including the Healthy West Orange Trail Connection and the Best Foot Forward initiative. Now, before we get into the webinar, I have a couple reminders for the presentation today. At the end of the slideshow, we'll have a question and answer portion. So please go ahead and hold your questions until the end, or you can send them to me in the chat as we go, and we'll read them once we finish up. Please note this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available to view on the Florida State Parks YouTube channel probably by the end of next week. And we will be emailing out that link to everyone who has registered. All right, I'd like to introduce Emily a little bit more. As I mentioned, she's the Executive Director of Bike Walk Central Florida, a nonprofit organization that advocates for bicycle and pedestrian safety, infrastructure, and policy. Prior to coming to Bike Walk, she was the Development Services Manager for the City of Castleberry, overseeing the Building Department, Planning Department, and the city's CRA, and received the 2019 Orlando Business Journal's 40 Under 40 Award for her work in the city. Emily graduated with her Master's in Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Central Florida in 2015. She serves on several boards, including the Central Florida chapter of the Florida Planning and Zoning Association and the University of Central Florida Planning Advisory Board. Emily is also an adjunct professor at the University of Central Florida, teaching urban and regional planning. Thank you again, Emily, for taking time to speak on our webinar today. And I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, and you can share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. And good morning, everyone. I am very excited to be here today and to talk to you about all the things that Bike Walk Central Florida does. Hopefully you've heard of us before. If not, that's okay. I'm here to introduce you to the organization and hopefully get you involved in either some of our programs or activities, or bring some of these ideas back to your advocacy organizations where you are locally. Anna, everybody can see my screen? We're good? Awesome. Okay. So Bike Walk Central Florida has a mission to transform Central Florida into a premier walking and biking community. And we want to do that through education and advocacy. And that really is talking to everyone about not only walking and biking, but driving safety as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our programs later on. But we strive to do this through creating a connected and equitable transportation system for all, because we recognize that there are groups and advocates that support recreational bike riding or trails or things of that nature. But we also have those individuals that have to use their bicycle to get to work or to get to school or get to where they need to go. They don't have the other option. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, how we really need to rethink about our transportation system to support everyone, even those that might not have the ability to walk, ride, or roll. So on our left of the slide shows our values of the organization. I really want to point out civility, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. The civility of the value of that in our organization was really the crux of kind of how Bike Walk got started. We were, the organization, really the founding members came together because they saw that drivers were not being very civil to those that were walking and biking in their community. They were being very aggressive towards those individuals, had negative thoughts to say about them. And so the whole kind of premise of Bike Walk started by trying to change that notion, that kind of awareness between drivers and those that are walking and biking in your community, and that you don't have to be so hostile, that those are your neighbors. That could be a grandmother or a mother or, somebody's parent. So, be safe, be civil, because those are our community members. And we want to make sure that everybody arrives alive at home. And that's part of the reason why the organization was started, is at the time that we realized that we were having these kind of conversations about drivers and them kind of paying attention to those that are walking and biking. And also we saw an uptick in obviously the number of serious injuries and fatalities within our community, so much so that it made kind of national headlines with the Dangerous by Design report first coming out in 2011, really highlighting, unfortunately, Central Florida is one of the most dangerous places to walk in the United States, and was really walking for that transportation purpose, not necessarily for recreation. Though the way that this report was conducted post-COVID 2020, when some of the data that was available prior to that was not necessarily reliable post-COVID, they kind of changed those metrics. But regardless, Central Florida is still one of the most dangerous places, even though we might not be number one on that list any longer. And so I'm going to take you all on a little urban planning kind of history tour of our transportation system. I do this with my urban planning students at UCF to remind them of the history of our transportation system, so that we know kind of why we're here, and where we can go in the future as far as designing our streets for everyone to be able to use. So I start with this image and remind everyone that this was the original Main Street less than or around 100 years ago, or even less in some communities. It was very slow streets. There were lots of modes of transportation. Everyone was kind of intermingling with the streets, and the streets of those communities at the time were the lifeline of those communities. They were the blood. They were the economic engine. A lot of business deals happened on the street. People were selling their wares, selling goods and services. The streets were really alive. They were our public spaces. That's where we gathered often. And soon, the automobile kind of took a hold and kind of pushed those types of activities to the sides of the streets in order to really get people through the communities instead of interacting and mingling among them within their community. So this is a good kind of before and after I like to show. This was downtown Cincinnati, pre and post I-75. On the left is that quaint little grid system where you could have gotten goods and services within your community. You could walk easily through this great grid system, but you can see post I-75 really broke that grid system up. That community was really kind of turned over to industry, really, which was what settles next to big highway systems like this, interchanges. And it really killed the community character. And we saw this across the country as we really started to suburbanize, go from somewhat of an urban setting to more of a sprawled setting where we use the automobile to get away from the central city, and land in what we were thinking was the American dream, right? Everybody had a single family home. They had the white picket fence. They drove their car to work and had the family when they came home. So whoops, I don't know why that went. So anyway, the point is that we started to develop in a different pattern, and that development into the different pattern led to us essentially being able to get all of our goods and services from a vehicle whenever, however we wanted. And that really led to this urban sprawl. Now we drive everywhere to get anything, and to walk anywhere is really inconvenient. And I'll give you a good example of that. This is a community in Oakland, and I'm not picking on them. Every community across the country probably has an example of this. But I, for example, live in this community, and I want to get to the DG Donuts. That's just on the north side of this highway here. And if I drive that, it takes me roughly 7 minutes to get there. If I walk it, based on the design of our community, it's going to take me 40 minutes. 40 minutes to walk one way to go get a donut and back. I'm going to burn off that donut by the time I get home, but it's going to take me that long. We don't have time for that in this type of society that we live in. We have to continue. So but if you look at how far away my house is from the DG Donuts, 1,600 feet, doorstep to doorstep. So it would be really easy for me to walk. And oftentimes individuals take the decision to walk, cross the road, maybe where it's not the safest, because it's really convenient for them to do so. And it would be inconvenient for someone to walk the 40 minutes based on the design of our communities using a single occupant vehicle most of the time. That being said, now we've shifted into this realm of only commuting via that single occupant vehicle, or based on that vehicle in general. And not only are we commuting alone the most, we're doing it for quite a bit of time. On average, we're commuting about a half an hour one direction. That's an hour of your day. You multiply that out for the number of times that you go to work or go to school or wherever you're driving, it becomes a lot of your time sitting in a vehicle, which leads to unhealthy lifestyles and other negative externalities, which we're going to talk about. And then, of course, this all leads to the design of the new Main Street. And this looks really fun to walk up and down and shop and to bike. And no one's biking here. No one's walking here. You don't see anyone in this photo, not even a few cars up there, but it's wide enough to where we can include all the cars on the road. And we don't necessarily have to worry about what's happening on this other side because nothing can take place on the other side. This road is not really designed to support all the activities that take place in a main street. And this is a main street for community in Pine Hills here in Central Florida. And this community is underserved, has a high population of those that do not have vehicles, so they have to walk and bike. And it's incredibly dangerous because most of the roads in this community are designed to move cars and not people safely. And that's the big part here. And then, of course, over time, just naturally based on the road widening and creating speeds that get people to where they need to go quickly, we've prioritized speed mostly in our communities, and therefore the number of fatalities and serious injuries increase. And we've seen this increase over time. Luckily, we've seen somewhat of a halt of that increase, at least here in Florida in general, and somewhat of a decline. However, I'm not sure what the final 2023 numbers show as far as our serious injuries and fatalities. That will be put out in a couple months. But we also, not only are we killing people on our streets, but we're not allowing for those most vulnerable to even be a part of our society and our community. And that really includes kids that are under the age of 16 who walk and bike to school or might want to go to the park or to a friend's house. And I know that there are separate conversations and probably lengthy webinars that could talk about the change in how a child's independence has kind of come about because of our sprawled nature and our transportation system in general. It's just parents don't think it's safe for their kids to go out. Therefore, they don't have that freedom that kids that grew up in older generations had because of that fear. And then also our senior populations, they're having to drive longer in their age because they have no other choice. The public transportation system usually in these communities is not very reliable. And it might be that they just need to run to the store, and that we have they don't have any other options. So they're going to continue to kind of take that chance, if you will, and drive without getting out and walking and biking. It's also the distance everything is, right? It's harder for a senior citizen or a 10-year-old to go 10 miles to the grocery store, or even 5 miles, based on how we construct our roadway and our infrastructure. So we're definitely excluding several populations. And then not to exclude the disability community, those that cannot have vision impairment or have mental disabilities, they cannot drive either. Another example of this is those individuals that might have epilepsy. They have their driver's license removed, and then they can't get to their doctor's appointments in time or at all because they can't drive. So we really design our communities around this ability for a certain subset of our population that drives to be able to do so. And that's not equitable. And that's obviously a goal of Bike Walk Central Florida. So how do we take our streets back? How do we confront the sprawled development? How do we stop widening roads? How do we start advocating for wider sidewalks and bike lanes and crosswalks where kids and people naturally need to cross? Well, that's where our organization comes in. And I like to say that we are a coalition building organization. That is what we're really good at. A lot of our programs are based on bringing together stakeholders and partners and groups of people to work on a mission within a certain program specifically. And I'll talk about what the different missions and the different goals are of each of these programs and all the stakeholders that are involved in each one of these. I'll start with the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program. This coalition was actually started 12 years ago. And the coalition is based on this 4E approach at increasing the driver yield rate at crosswalks in communities. So the Florida law requires that as a driver, if there's a pedestrian that has intent to cross the road, the driver has to stop and let that person cross. The pedestrian, the person walking, always has the right of way. Most of the time, there are certain variations of that, but in certain situations, that pedestrian has the intent to cross, they should be allowed to cross the road. And the Best Foot Forward program measures the success of educating drivers and people in our community on that law, kind of reminding them of that. And then at the same time, reminding people that are walking and biking how to do so safely, how to make sure that they're doing and are following the law as well. So the education kind of goes both ways. We also work with our partners to do some engineering improvements at crosswalks, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We also work with our law enforcement partners to enforce that driver yield law, and we do so with an approach to education as well. I'll touch on that in a minute. And then we evaluate those crosswalks and collect data. And I'm going to start with the data, but first, here are the number of partners within the program. We are, from what we know, the largest grassroots pedestrian safety coalition in the country because of the number of law enforcement partners, supportive agencies, and municipal partners that participate in the program. We've recently expanded the Best Foot Forward program from Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties into Volusia, Brevard, and Marion County with the support of FDOT and Target Zero initiatives. So we're really excited to be partnered with the Florida Department of Transportation with the idea and goal of how to expand this program to other locales that might have an interest in increasing the driver yield rates and building a coalition around safety. So I'll start with the driver yield rate. We measure this by crossing the road 20 times, 3 different times the day. We have a plainclothes individual that goes out and puts their foot in the crosswalk, and the driver, as they approach that crosswalk, either lets that person cross or they drive around that person in the crosswalk. We don't just jump out in the middle of the road. That is obviously very dangerous and against the statute. There is a certain stopping distance that's required for a car going a certain speed to come to a complete stop, and that's based for signs and for intersections as well. So we use the same engineering design timing for our data collectors. We mark that with a flag. Sometimes if you have advanced warning signs like a pedestrian crossing ahead sign, those signs are usually that safe distance as well. And so we mark down not only whether the driver stops or doesn't stop for the pedestrian, but we mark down whether or not they made a hard break. Maybe they didn't see the person right away, so maybe there's some landscape that needs to be maintained. Maybe the sign needs to be cleaned or moved. So we look at things like that so that the driver has more awareness that someone wants to cross the road. We note the time of day, we note how many people we see that are walking, riding their bike, or using other rollable modes of transportation, scooters, if the community allows those or has a program that supports those, wheelchair users, those types of things. We note what is kind of going around that community. Is it residential? Is it commercial? And kind of take those notes. We culminate those notes into an annual report that we provide our partners every year, and we go over those to say, how can we improve these crosswalks? And I'll talk about some of those improvements in a minute. So here's some of our averages across the 3 counties. We haven't started collecting data in the Brevard, Volusia, and Marion counties yet, so this is just data here. But as you can see, Every quarter that we measure some data, it might increase or change. It might, but most of it is pretty consistent based on the speed of that road. Oftentimes you find a higher percentage of drivers stopping for pedestrians on slower streets than you do on higher streets. Also, we notate if it's a school crossing or if it's a trail crossing. Obviously, special emphasis might need to be taken for a school or trail crossing because of the number of users using that crosswalk. So part of what we do is educate. We do this for school education. We go out and do community support for maybe a roadway project or a safety project. We'll be there talking about the safety improvements that the community is making and also how the community can get involved in those projects. We do a lot of community presentations like this, and we attend a lot of events. So hopefully if you're in the Central Florida area, you've seen our bright yellow tent at some of the events, talking to individuals about not only pedestrian safety, but bicycle safety as well. We do a few helmet fittings, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So here's some of our low-cost engineering improvements that we've made over some time, and I'm pretty excited about a lot of these because the driver yield rate shot up with a lot of these really quick treatments. So this is in the city of Kissimmee. This is at Dyer Boulevard. This is a trail crossing and a school crossing for a middle and an elementary school. That's further up the road in this image on the left. And the city decided that they wanted to add the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, that on-demand push button that notifies the cars that someone is present and would like to cross the road. And they installed that with some additional striping and signage. They did some advanced warning signs as well, not pictured in the photo on the right. And that increased the driver yield rate from 30% to 78%. And that was almost night and day between the two collections once that improvement went in. And this improvement cost roughly about $40,000 for the community to do the lighting and to do the striping as well for those signs. So low cost. We're not rebuilding roads. We know we can't do that, but these are small projects that any community can implement and see some success. Castleberry, this is at an elementary school on a residential road in a community. We had a lot of drivers not stop for our data collectors, and we heard anecdotally from the crossing guard that they were also having difficulty. So the city came in and added these gateway treatments. So they're the gutter and center aisle signs. They're the stop here for paddles, so they're flexible, can be struck by a car. So far, the paddle has been replaced one time. With the addition of the stop bar and those paddles, this project cost $2,400, and you can see the big before and after on the driver yield rate. And even the crossing guard has said how it has made her job much, much safer getting kids across the street before and after school. So small improvements make big changes. Here in the city of Orlando, at Michigan and Cayman Way, they added some colorful bulb outs to shorten that crosswalk distance. They also added some high visibility signs and some advanced warning signs. Those driver yield rates didn't increase as much as we had liked them to, but the city's going back to the drawing board. This is a 4-lane roadway that is more of somewhat of a minor arterial that connects communities in Orlando, and it's on a curve and it's 40 miles an hour. So we think the speed needs to be reduced a little bit, and love to see maybe an elimination of a lane. I think that's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but that'll really reduce the speed and kind of remind drivers of that speed by reducing the lane. And then it would really make sure that drivers are paying attention to those that want to cross the road there. So more to come with the city of Orlando on that project. We also consult for some safety projects and participate in any road safety audits, trail safety audits that are done. We'll review plans that each of our communities that are participant in the program to make sure that our data is and the recommendations that we have are being implemented in the plans and can be developed in the future. We do know that these plans are expensive. It takes a long time for them to come to fruition. So we hope that our data and our low cost, quick build solutions provide opportunity for communities to make those changes even before they go and rebuild a roadway, and then maybe implement some safer, more permanent solutions after. Our enforcement operations, like I said, are really education-based. We focus on the media more so than anything, attending these and sharing the message of why the enforcement partners are out. It's also a great community opportunity for the community to partner with our law enforcement and see them making an impact positively in their community. We've had a lot of people thank the officers that are doing that, making sure that their kids are able to get to school safely or that they're able to use the trail. So the program last year, these are some of the numbers. We had over 30 coalition partners conducted or attended 92 plus different events, reached about 10,000 or short of 10,000 individuals, having conversations with them about this message. We monitored 76 crosswalks, collected over 370 data samples of crossing that road, conducted 4 high visibility enforcement operations, which it totaled 71 details. That's the number of crosswalks that were enforced. That totaled 837 warnings and citations issued. To date, across the program, since the program has been in place for about 12 years now, we've handed out about 12,000 warnings and citations across the community. We've done about 800 details with our enforcement partners, and have had well over 900 educational opportunities in the community. So we slowly but surely think that we're making an impact, but if you all know, driver behavior or behavior change programs in general take time. If you think like the seatbelt law and reminding drivers put their seatbelt on, or the Stop Smoking campaign, those took 15, 20 years. So we think halfway through, we're really pushing hard to change that dichotomy between those that walk and bike, regardless if they have to or not, and those that are driving, to try to bring civility back to our community. One of our other events that we put on to do this is—
Emily, before you continue, would you mind just closing the little pop-up so we can see the full PowerPoint?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank you. Awesome. So Bike 5 Cities is our annual bike ride that was started in 2017 when a community installed some bike signs and really didn't, the community was very confused as to why these bike signs went up. There was no marketing or education that went behind these kind of bike routes that were installed in the community. And so Bike Walk Central Florida got involved with that community and got several others involved to create a bicycle ride that shows people where they can comfortably ride in their community and get from city to city. So it's the city of Orlando, Winter Park, Maitland, the town of Eatonville, and the city of Castleberry all participated in the first event in 2017. We expanded that route, which was 28 miles, to 30 miles in 2021, and then added 2 additional smaller rides, because 30 miles is a little bit of a distance, especially those that are interested but might be concerned about getting out on their bike, especially on the street. And so we have a 5-mile route, and we have a 11-mile route that goes to different parks. And what the goal of this ride is to not only show the community where they can ride, but we also get our partners engaged and involved with this. We bring the Florida Department of Transportation out on the ride so that they can see where we have some issues, maybe crossing some of those larger roads where the signal timing might not be supportive for someone that's walking or biking. And we have these conversations while we're out on the trails or on the streets of our neighborhoods, talking about how we can improve this infrastructure. We've had several small successes. We've also had the installation of some permanent signage that really creates permanence of the route in and of itself, so that not only that you don't have to just do the route the one time a year, you could use it any time of the year to get from different city to city. And we try to look for those low stress streets anyone and everyone of all abilities can ride on for the event. So we welcome everyone. Next year, or this year's event, October 26, 2024, check out our website for more information towards May when we open registration on that event. One of the other programs that's somewhat new to Bike Walk Central Florida is the Healthy West Orange Trails Connection. This is funding provided by the West Orange Healthcare District and the Foundation for a Healthier West Orange. During the pandemic, they identified some of their goals of where they wanted to spend foundation dollars. And they realized that having great active transportation and a network of that system really helped to get people physically engaged with their community and We've provided some social and mental benefits as well. So the district and the foundation kind of started this charge towards creating this stakeholder group of cities in West Orange County, along with some of the regional partners, to not only advance making connections to those communities, but also work on activating those trail systems that exist currently, getting more people out on the trail to use the trail for whatever their purpose might be, recreation or for transportation, but really engaging the community to get out and get involved. To date, we've been somewhat successful. We've created a Trailblazers Challenge that challenges people to come out to some of the different events throughout the West Orange County area. And those events could be a 5K. It could be Nearland Gardens had a gardening event, so you're getting plants. So it's varying events that really try to engage you physically, mentally, and spiritually. And so we have started a Take Over the Trails Day, kind of culminating all the partners together. At the end of that event with the Trailblazers Challenge, we're going to hand out a bunch of prizes on how many people have attended those different events throughout the year. That Trailblazers Challenge is, the Take Over the Trails Day, the culmination of the Trailblazers Challenge, will actually take place in February. So if you're here in Central Florida, come see us on the West Orange Trail in the town of Oakland. We'll have more information on our website. In addition, we've helped facilitate some additional landscape maintenance and plantings along the trail, and have done some trail safety audits to date that have culminated to different small projects like maintaining of sign and striping at crossings, or cleaning up some trash or debris that might be along the trail. We're hoping to continue the momentum on this work. The foundation has set aside $5 million to construct some of these connections that we're hoping to make to really truly activate and create that network. And so we're creating a grant program for those West Orange County cities to apply for that grant funding to make those connections. And that will kick off hopefully this year, the end of this year, beginning of next. So come see me in a couple years and we'll actually talk about some of the projects that we've been able to fund and hopefully start to build within West Orange County to truly meet the mission of this program. So while we're doing all of those, we're also helping some community partners out. I am a trained planner, as Anna introduced me. And so when I started at Bike Walk, I really wanted to bring that aspect to the organization. So we have started doing some community planning and identifying basically networks for active transportation. That includes those that walk, bike, and roll. And we've done so for Dr. Phillips for the new packing district, which is in the northwest center of College Park, kind of northwest Orlando. And so we found a way to kind of connect downtown with the downtown UCF campus through the packing district to that Pine Hills community that I talked about in the beginning. So we're able to connect them to get to jobs and services, to their hospitals and things through an active transportation at multi-use trails, bike lanes, a combination of that infrastructure that creates a network so that people can get to where they want to go on 2 feet or 2 wheels or 4. In addition to that, I apologize, I went too fast. In addition to that, we also have done some work for the city of Apopka, and this year we're hoping to do some work for Seminole County. We have more information of that on our website as well. Trying to speed this up, I do want to allow time for questions at the end. We just have so much that we work on. Our Bike Walk Kids program is somewhat new. We felt that we had a need in the community to really help start them young and teach them how to wear their helmet all the time and properly, and some basic bike skills, bike safety skills. So we started doing bike rodeos and some helmet fitting and pop-up events, and they have been really successful in the community. We have partnered with Pine Lock Elementary, which is an elementary school in the Holden Heights community, over by OBT, which is used to be one of the most dangerous roads in Central Florida. FDOT has made a concerted effort to change that. They've done some great infrastructure there. So Pine Lock Elementary, while they were doing the construction on that really dangerous road, we went into the elementary school and created a right, left, right song. I don't have enough time to share that with you on this webinar. You can find that on our website, and it's It's free to share and use in classrooms or with schools, but it basically teaches kids to look left, right, left. It's a catchy tune. There's a music video that FDOT also supported as well. But really, again, going back into the community and doing better, more education that's really making an impact on each of those individual kids that cross that road every day. More bike walk kids, we partnered with the CRA that's along that stretch of roadway called OBT Next, and have started doing more bike safety events with them. In addition, every year we partner with another nonprofit that does a sporting goods store that allows children in foster homes or in group homes to come in and get a sporting good, and sometimes that's a bicycle or a scooter or a skateboard or rollerblades, and so we come in and fit them with helmets. Every year we fit between 700 and 900 helmets on kids' heads in a day and a half. We use a lot of partners and volunteers in the community that are certified helmet fitters to make sure that not only they're getting that helmet, but it's fitted for that kid properly, right? We want them to be safe. And then we also partnered with the city of St. Cloud this year to do 2 Bikes and Bites events where we're rolling around downtown St. Cloud, having a great time, popping into restaurants and bars, having a little bit of bites and snacks along the way, and seeing a community as they really develop around this kind of biking culture. So really excited to kind of be on the ground helping those communities with those efforts. In addition, Bike Walk a couple years ago created the first regional trail map. We coalesced all of the cities and counties and regional trails into one map, and also identified specific routes that we were hoping to support. The Bike 5 Cities route is highlighted in that thick yellow. You can kind of see the outline around Central Florida. That's the Bike 5 route. But this really shows where critical connections could be made. And this tool also allows us to see the available right-of-way, or if there's an existing easement, so that if we do see a critical connection, as we talk to communities or as communities look at where they can connect to each other, they can see opportunities for making those connections through that we call right-of-way retrofitability tool that looks at what that available right-of-way is to see if we can, insert those connections, and then of course identify those projects so that as those projects either come in to have roadway construction curb to curb, or if they're doing resurfacing, we can work with them to improve those active transportation infrastructure throughout those regions. As a nonprofit, we have a board of directors. So we have 15 board of directors that support our organization each and every day. They're voluntary. They don't get paid. They have full-time jobs, usually in this space. If not, they have a complete passion for it. But they really, truly support a lot of the advocacy efforts that the organization has had over the years. So here's a good example of the input that our board has had, not only on our organization, but supporting our community events as well. And we don't just do all the fun things too. We take a seat at the table. Our Metro Plan Orlando, our Central Florida Transportation Planning Organization, received a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant in the tune of $3.8 million, and are working on creating Vision Zero action plans. They're doing so not only for the region, but for the 3 counties that they cover and all the cities in between. And we are happy to be stakeholders involved in that work, helping to create meaningful projects and programs that help support that Vision Zero, so that we can make sure that no one has to die on our roadways anymore. We also have our members that are part of Parks and Recreation, because oftentimes that's who maintains our trail system. So our staff not only serves as liaisons on those boards, but they also provide really great input into the plans and where those additional connections need to be. Working on expanding that into Brevard and Volusia County as we expand some of our programming into towards the coast. It also helps that I moved to Volusia County, so it's a little bit me wanting to get involved in my community as well. We also have a list of all of our partners and supporters. We really can't do the work that we do without our partner agencies, our stakeholders, and the coalitions that we build that really enable us to work together to get this work done. Bike Walk is not the sole person. We don't own roads. We can't go and enforce things. It's our partners that really do some of these efforts for us. And we are excited to engage and get them excited about this work. That's really, I feel like we're like the hype man or the cheerleader sometimes that gets behind these efforts and gets everyone really excited about making sure that our communities are safe, and talking about that message with everyone that will hear us. We also have our sponsors for Bike 5 Cities. That event would not be made possible without our partnership, more specifically with Mobility Week. We've partnered with them almost every year, and it's been really rewarding to have that relationship and be a signature event in that movement across Florida. And if you're not familiar with Mobility Week, Anna, maybe that's a good topic for a future webinar. So that wraps up the presentation that I have for you today. There's probably a lot more that I could cover, but I did want to allow for questions. Like I said, my name is Emily Bush. I was formerly Emily Hanna. We're in the process of changing the name right now. I did get married. So either one, I will answer either one. But please have a chance, go to check out our website, sign up for our newsletter. We send out a weekly information about what's happening in our community and things that you need to be in the know for walking, biking, and rolling. So with that, I will turn it over to Anna, and if they have any questions, happy to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. That was such a good overview of everything you guys do and all the important work and great results that you're getting with these programs. Go ahead, and if anyone has questions, put them in the chat. We do have a couple here to start with. What are the education activities that you do at the POP events? I think that should be pop-up events, and I believe that came up during the Healthy West Orange Trails slide.
Sure. So some of the work that it really depends on the community. We like to have those conversations ahead of time to know exactly how we need to structure what those activities look like, depending on where we have the event, if it's indoors or outdoors, what's the time frame that we have with who our audience is. Do we have 30 minutes? Do we have an hour? Do we have 2 hours? Really dictates kind of what those activities are. Some of the activities for a quick time frame is understanding, like doing the left, right, left. We try to engage them in that song and try to get them to look left, right, left. Sometimes if we have the space, we'll draw out a crosswalk. We'll kind of mimic traffic interactions and be able to kind of remind children to stop, look before they cross the road. If we have a little bit more time and we're outdoors and this is maybe a bike rodeo, we'll do some starting and stopping. They'll work on kind of balancing the bike, learning. We also work on a figure 8 pattern with them, and includes several kids in a large figure 8. So they have to look out for each other as they're kind of crossing. We do rock dodge. We do a few different ones, like I said, just depending on how much space that we have. That's really for like the kid-centric stuff. For the Take Over the Trails and the Healthy West Orange work for the activation of the trails, sometimes that's really more just about education and the available resources in and around where those individuals might live. So we partner with the cities or the chamber or the YMCA and talk about programs that are within the community that are a bike ride or a walk away from wherever they live. So hopefully I answered that question for you.
Awesome, thank you. And then another question was, how is funding sourced for developing the regional walking and biking map?
So that's a good question. The regional, so X Geographic, if I could go back and see if I can do this real quick. Yeah. So X Geographic is a GIS data analytics company. They were basically working on some of this at the time, and actually the founding member was a board member of Bike Walk, so he drinks the Kool-Aid, he gets it. And then at that time, we had chatted a little bit about just the fact that we didn't have a regional trail map and that we could probably put this together. And I said, how long do you think this will take? Like, how much would you need? And he said, $3,000. I'm like, that's it. We have to make this happen. So I had some relationships with Hale Innovation, which is an engineering firm that was a startup at the time, doing some trail grant work. And then the Catalyst Group has been doing trail work for a very long time. Most notably, some of their principals are known for the West Orange Trail. So I had conversations individually with them, told them about this idea, said, hey, this is all I need. They decided to split the $3,000 and each put in $1,500, and that is how we got the first regional trail map. So I wanted to tell you that story about, one, how inexpensive it was to get that done, and how prior to that, the gentleman that started X Geographic worked for the Regional Planning Council here locally. And I was a city planner at Castleberry, and we had talked with our different regional partners about creating something like this back in 2016 and 2017, specifically at the onset of the Bike 5 Cities event. And it never came to fruition. So in 2020, when I came into Bike Walk as the executive director, I went to this individual and we worked out, and obviously the rest is history. But I want to share that with you so that it's not something as big and daunting as this is not a big task to take on if you find the right partners that are willing to help you achieve your mission. Obviously, the Catalyst Group and Hail Innovation, we've talked about this since the inception, so they've gotten a lot of support, and they've gotten their money's worth, I would think, and they've used this tool in some of the developments that they've done. Just all that to say, just ask, talk to people. You might be able to get something done cheaper and quicker than you'd ever imagine.
Awesome. Great story. Let's see here. Is there an application to participate in the Best Foot Forward program, or do the cities kind of come to you guys and say that they want to partner?
So it really depends on where that city is located. Right now, we kind of cover regions. So right now we're covering District 5. It's where we're starting. If there's a community that's interested that's not in that area, they can still contact me and I can tell them about the program. And we can work out some ability for them to at least maybe take on the enforcement aspect or the education aspect. We are working with DOT through some grant funding from the Federal Highway Administration to expand that program, but that expansion is going to take some time as we scale the program. The program wasn't originally designed to be statewide, so we're having to do some operational changes to the program to make sure that the data is still accurate, because that's the number one important thing with the Best Foot Forward program, and to make sure that the enforcement and the education and all the components that go into that can scale. So that's what we're working on behind the scenes right now as we're kind of taking on the rest of District 5. So if you're outside of that, just patiently wait for a couple of years. We'll be ready for you. But if you're within that region, definitely reach out and we can get you started with the program, hopefully this year.
Awesome, great. And then kind of similar to that, what is the best or easiest way for a new partner who hasn't been engaged with Bike Walk to become involved? And do you have like a newsletter or some way for those new partners to kind of connect and get a feel for what's coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a newsletter. So if you go to our website or email the info@bikewalkcf.org here, you can join our newsletter, just emailing us and we'll add you on. If you want to get more engaged, email me and let's have a conversation. I come to our partners and I, as a planner, review comp plans. I look at your trail master plans. I look at complete street projects. I will do site plan review. I will help you looking at policy and trying to support those efforts to become safer for your residents. We've done this for a lot of our partners, regardless if they're a Best Foot Forward partner or not. We try to provide support where we can, because at the end of the day, we want to achieve our mission, and we don't want to continue to see another pedestrian fatality or someone struck on a bike in the news. So we'll do what we can to help.
Awesome. And then I think I have one more question here. Are there any resources or guides available through Bike Walk that communities can utilize who aren't in your service region or are outside of the Central Florida area?
So again, I've had conversations with some of, so for example, District 1, their commuter safe program, very similar to District 5's Rethink commuter assistance. We've worked with them on education. So it really depends on where you're at. And like I said, that's more of a conversation to see what your goals are so that we can point you in the right direction. I will say that we are working on revamping our website. It's not the most user-friendly, and by revamping it, the goal is to become kind of that hub of information and really bring all of those resources into a one-stop shop. A lot of the things that we do hand out at events right now are DOT or Target Zero branded. We do support and hand out other information from, say, the Florida Bicycle Association, the city of Orlando, just kind of depends on where we're at. But we have all of that information that we can share with you. We have a lot of those types of materials on how to do the bike rodeos and how to do education, walk, ride, thrive type things with communities and schools. So we have all of that as a resource. It's just not right now publicly available. So like I said, email me and we'll have that conversation and I'll try to see what I can do for you resource-wise.
Awesome. That is great. A lot of people saying great presentation. Thank you so much for the presentation. I will echo those comments. Thank you, Emily, for taking the time to speak with us today and be featured on our webinar series. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We are at the end. If anyone watching today is not already subscribed to our webinar series, you can head to our website, floridadep.gov/OGT, and sign up for a subscription to all of our webinars. They're always free. And if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to us at the Office of Greenways and Trails at floridadep.gov. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Emily. I hope you all had a great holiday and New Year's, and we will see you next month.